This film is definitely the most exciting and also the most extreme in the Saw series. As the original planned finale of the Saw universe, the seventh film not only resolves all previous plot points but also maximizes the horror and suspense through 3D technology. Most importantly, the appearance of the ultimate apprentice Lawrence completes a shocking 7-year echo with the first film, forming a perfect closed loop of fate. It then takes everyone to decipher the ultimate code in this apprentice battle. The story continues from the sixth film. Jill sees the timer has started, so she closes the door and waits outside. However, as she turns around, Hoffman's screams echo from inside the room. Immediately after, the glass on the door shatters. When she sees the jaw trap stuck in the middle of the railing, she immediately senses danger and quickly hides behind the clothes rack. Before she can even catch her breath, Hoffman appears in front of her. Seeing his traumatized cheek and twisted left hand, Jill is too terrified to make a single sound. She knows very well that if he discovers her, she has no chance of survival. And when she sees the jaw trap taken away, she becomes even more certain that Hoffman will not let her go. Ordered to save her life, Jill goes straight to the Internal Affairs Department, which specifically oversees TH Police Station. She prepares to use the information in her hands to exchange for protection and full immunity. The facts are just as she expects. When he learns that Jigsaw's inside man is Hoffman, Gibson immediately agrees to her terms. But even so, Jill still cannot escape the fear in her heart. That night, she dreams of Hoffman.
Oh God.
You want to know the only thing wrong with killing you, Jill? I can only do it once.
Feeling the bone-chilling pain, Jill can only pray that everything ends quickly. Meanwhile, Hoffman, unaware of this, returns to his secret hideout. Watching the case reports on TV, he instantly guesses the general situation. Otherwise, the police would never be able to find the secret room so quickly and accurately. But he does not choose to escape. Instead, he decides to continue imitating Jigsaw's crimes to force the police to hand over Jill and complete his revenge. And those he chooses are 3 young people caught in a love triangle. The girl tied at the top is named Tina. She is simultaneously dating Brad and Ryan. He uses their feelings to lure them into crime to satisfy his material desires. Hoffman designs a device for the 3 of them that combines a chainsaw and a hydraulic winch. Once activated, Tina continuously descends, and at 60 seconds, her body is eliminated. To save her, the 2 must push the chainsaw towards each other.
Sparing her while proving for good who is indeed the alpha male.
What are you fucking staring at, you motherfuckers? Do something!
Are you both strong enough to walk away from what is destroying you? Or will you fight one more time for the heart that binds? You have 60 seconds to decide. Live or die. Make your choice.
As the recording ends, the device immediately activates. Out of male dignity and blind obsession with love, Brad and Ryan push the chainsaw towards each other without a second thought. He aims to prove his judgment is more thorough than Jigsaw's. The scene returns to the plot. Seeing that time is running out, Tina immediately tears off her disguise.
I love you too, baby!
Do it! You gotta do it! You gotta kill him, Brad! Do it!
Stupid bitch!
Do it! Do it! Do it!
You love him?
No!
Ah, you love him more than me?
No! I had to say that! I've always loved you! You gotta do it for me, please! You gotta kill him! Kill Brad! Do it!
You lied. What? Fuck you! Fuck you! Fred! Fred, look at me! Is the chick that bumped me in your bed 2 days ago worth one of our lives? It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. Right? Yeah!
What are you doing, you fucking asshole?
I think we're breaking up with you, Tina.
Just as Tina is in despair, the police receive a report and rush over. But before they can get close, the countdown already ends. Ultimately, Tina, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, is sawed in half alive. And everything related to Jigsaw also makes headlines again. Among them, the most influential is a writer named Bobby. As a survivor of the Jigsaw case, he not only shows no fear on his face, but also promotes the ordeal as a medal in life.
Because I hadn't just survived. I was reborn. This was my life.
However, just as Bobby gets carried away, 4 people are being tested in a junkyard.
Hello, Heaven. I want to play a game. The situation you find yourself in is of your own doing. You, your girlfriend, and your friends are all racists.
You fuck! You get me out of here!
You have intimidated others based on their physical differences, but today, it is you who will run scared. Your pathetic friends follow your every word, Evan. Therefore, you will be the only one capable of saving them and yourself. In 30 seconds, the jacks holding up this car will fall, setting off a deadly chain of events. In order to stop this from happening, you must tear yourself away from the seat to which you are glued. Then you must pull the red lever before you. But no act comes without a sacrifice. You've judged others by the color of their skin, and today, Evan, you will learn that we are all the same color on the inside. Live or die, Evan. The choice is yours.
As the recording ends, the car immediately starts, and the rotation speed keeps getting higher. Listening to his girlfriend and friends' shouts, Evan tries his best to break free from the restraints. Even if a large area of his skin is torn off, he does not stop. It is worth mentioning that the person playing Evan is Linkin Park's lead singer, Chester Bennington. Next, the narrative returns to the plot. In continuous severe pain, Evan finally detached his other arm. But immediately after, he discovers that to reach the lever, he must leave the seat. Evan starts struggling like crazy. But every time he moves forward a little, the pain multiplies. Under his companions' horrified gazes, the skin on Evan's back is mostly torn off. But the countdown has already ended. Soon after, Gibson receives a report and rushes over. But when he walks into the factory, he is stunned by the scene before him. He sees that on the mirror in the inner room. It is clearly written. It tells Gibson to look at himself. And a jaw-splitting device is placed on the ground. Sensing something is wrong, he immediately tells his assistant Rogers to find the forensic doctor. At the same time, Bobby, to maintain his popularity, they organize a survivor support group meeting. When Simone arrives, Sini tells her story. She learns from Sini that Sini suffers daily domestic abuse. Therefore, in the game designed by Jigsaw, she unhesitatingly pushes her husband down.
Sydney, look at me. You made a decision. How did that make you feel?
Free. He was abusive. I tried to stop it before, but it wasn't until that moment that it really did something. It was him or me, and I chose to live. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Simone is instantly enraged after hearing this. In her opinion, the game designed by Jigsaw only uses fear to restrain the test subjects. It cannot make people change or be reborn. Seeing that Simone is about to ruin the show, Bobby quickly stands up to refute her. He then publicly tears open his jacket, revealing the scars on his chest. He calls on everyone to treat Jigsaw's game as a tempering of life. He specifically calls his wife Joyce over to prove he has transformed. Unexpectedly, just as the two embrace, a commotion comes from behind the crowd. The person clapping is Lawrence, who sawed off his leg in the first film. He crawls out of the secret room. He uses a pipe to cauterize his wound and stop the bleeding, Burrell saving his life. That excruciating pain becomes an imprint carved into his very being. It also makes him understand the gravity of Jigsaw's tests more than anyone else. But now, Bobby uses this survival, bought with blood and tears, as a tool for profit. What he understands even less is why Jigsaw lets this liar go. Seeing Lawrence's familiar gaze, images from the past instantly appear in Bobby's mind. At that time, he is eating with his friend Carl. The television happens to be broadcasting an interview program with survivors of the Jigsaw case.
And if those people weren't so fucked up after their games, they'd make a mint selling their stories.
Bobby immediately smells an opportunity after hearing this. Then he uses details from case reports and accounts from survivor interviews to write a book titled, Survive. The content inside is about him being forced to undergo a test. Through the entire process of his transformation, relying on the scar on his chest and his vivid description of the test, Bobby not only transforms from an office worker into a writer, but also gains fame, fortune, and love, reaching the pinnacle of his life. However, he also enters Jigsaw's sight because of this.
Your name, sir? John. With an H, without an H, doesn't matter.
John with an H this time.
You're quite an army working for you here, don't you? Must be spreading a pretty good word.
Well, we try to reach as many people as possible, you know?
You don't see anything wrong with that?
No. No, sir, I don't.
You know, history's a passion for me. In ancient Egypt, if you were speaking under oath, you were required to say, if I'm lying, take me to the quarries. That mean anything to you?
No, sir. No, sir, it doesn't.
Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means if you knowingly lied on the public record, that you're subject to a period of enslavement.
What are you implying here, sir?
I'm not implying anything.
Move along, buddy. You signed your book.
Thanks for the signature. Nice picture. But I don't need it. We've met.
Combining Jigsaw and Lawrence's gazes with the news report about the Tina case, Bobby immediately feels something is wrong and stops the recording. However, he never imagines that an even more terrifying entity also knows about his relationship with Jigsaw. When Bobby wakes up, he is already locked inside an iron cage. When he discovers the two words, survive, written at the bottom of the cage, Bobby kicks it with all his might. Just then, the nearby television suddenly turns on automatically.
Hello, Bobby. I want to play a game. You have amassed wealth, fame, and notoriety based upon your story of survival. Many have aided in your cause, but few know the truth. You are a liar. You and I both know you have never been in a trap, nor have you ever been tested. Today, these lies will come full circle and you will learn if you truly have what it takes to call yourself a survivor. The cage you find yourself in will symbolize your rebirth.
Joyce? No. Joyce! No! Please, no!
Within the next 60 minutes, you must stay upon the path of learning and traverse a series of obstacles to obtain access to your wife, who you have also deceived. If you fail to reach her before the clock runs out, she will die. No. Live or die, Bobby. Make your choice.
As the video ends, the lights in the room automatically turn on. Before Bobby can figure out what is happening, the cage is suddenly pulled into the air, and the iron plates on both sides flatten, revealing that they are covered in sharp spikes. Looking at the pull ring on the chain, Bobby instantly understands the meaning of survival. Once he firmly grips the horizontal bar on the cage, he vigorously swings his body to shift his center of gravity, causing the cage to move. After confirming the distance is safe enough, Bobby immediately jumps down, but the scene on the television gives him no chance to breathe. He sees "Rebirth" and "Understand Your Problem" written on the stairs and door respectively. Bobby quickly follows the instructions and continues forward. Meanwhile, Gibson returns to the safe house with the jaw splitter. Knowing that her fingerprints are extracted from it, Jill can only helplessly confess everything.
When you told me Hoffman had it in for you, you didn't mention that it was because you tried to kill him. There's a new game going on. Does that surprise you?
Looking at Jill's reaction, Gibson becomes even more certain that everything Hoffman does is for revenge. But he has no better solution and can only keep Jill here. He barely steps out of the room when Palmer brings bad news. Someone sends Jill a disc, and Gibson can no longer remain calm. But before he can think of a countermeasure, an accident occurs at the junkyard. Hearing the violent explosion, he senses something is wrong and quickly tells Rogers to contact the bomb squad and seal off the scene. However, he never expects this command not only costs him and Jill their lives, but also implicates 7 colleagues. After hanging up the phone, Gibson has Palma play the video. The sender of the letter is indeed Hoffman.
Hello, Gibson. Been a long time. What I want is simple. Give me Jill Tuck. You're protecting her despite the fact that she had direct knowledge throughout, which makes her complicit in every death. I'll make you a deal. Give her to me. The game stops and no one else dies. If not, everyone dies and you'll be to blame. Make your choice. The clock's ticking.
Gibson knows Hoffman's ruthlessness well, so he decides to transfer Jill to the police interrogation room. Meanwhile, Bobby follows the hint and finds a camera. When he sees the words, "Correct your attitude," written on the door, he walks in without hesitation. As the lights in the room turn on, Bobby freezes in place. He sees a familiar figure tied up in the device when he discovers Nina is still alive. He rushes forward to save the person. Unexpectedly, the device shows no reaction. Just then, Bobby discovers a tape recorder on the table.
Hello, Bobby. Before you is one of your trusted colleagues. She has been your publicist for years, knowing your lies, but choosing to speak no evil. She has been richly rewarded for her words, but today she will be rewarded for her silence.
Hoffman's device for Nina is called the silence ring. Once activated, sonar sensors trigger a geared transmission system based on the volume of sound in the room, which then drives a steel pipe to move forward until it penetrates Nina's throat. The key is placed in her stomach. Next, what Bobby needs to do is to pull out the key. As the recording ends, the device is immediately triggered. Seeing that the steel pipe has already started moving, Bobby quickly covers Nina's mouth to comfort her. Then he slowly pulls the key. Who would have thought that as soon as he starts to pull, Nina lets out a heart-wrenching scream. Apparently, the fishhook has already hooked her intestines. But due to the extremely tight time, Bobby has no other choice. He braces himself and increases the force, trying to shorten Nina's suffering. But after he pulls out the key, Nina has already completely collapsed. Before the countdown ends, she is pierced through the throat by a steel pipe.
No! Why wouldn't you just shut the fuck up? You just needed to shut up!
As the second test ends, the iron chain around Joyce's neck immediately tightens, and she is dragged down to her knees. Meanwhile, Palma receives a video of Bobby being tied up. He learns that Bobby's wife and team are all missing. Gibson immediately guesses the general situation, so he takes Bobby's photo to the interrogation room, trying to get valuable clues from Jill. But he is told that Jigsaw has never mentioned this person, and she has only seen him on television. Just as Gibson is at a loss, Hoffman sends an email.
Hello, Gibson. Once again, we're at a moral crossroad. I don't blame you for not giving me Jill Tuck, but you shouldn't let an old grudge cloud your judgment. Look to where you're being led. Look beyond the crossroad to the clear dawn. Do you see it?
As he looks at the fleeting sculpture, Gibson instantly understands Hoffman's meaning. He immediately takes Rogers and rushes towards the location in his memory. Meanwhile, Bobby has already found the room for the third test. He sees, "Achieves self-worth through validation," written on the door and thinks he will face his wife next. But after he walks into the room, he finds Susan tied to the device. He wants to ask for Joyce's location, but before he finishes speaking, an iron cage breaks through the window.
Hello, Bobby. That feeling running through your body is fear. The fear of not knowing if you have what it takes to survive. Before you is your lawyer, who swore an oath of ethics but chose to see no evil in order to benefit herself. Once her device begins to rotate, it will pierce her eyes and mouth if you don't delay its movement for at least 30 seconds. To do this, you must step into the other machine and lift the bars to the highest position, long enough to close the circuit, slowing down her device. If you do nothing, she will whine to her death before the clock runs out. Do you have what it takes to help her? Make your choice.
With Nina's previous example, Bobby does not dare to delay for a moment. Unexpectedly, as soon as he lifts the lever, intense pain shoots through his waist. Unprepared, he immediately collapses. Susan's screams instantly echo throughout the room. Seeing that the device has resumed operation, he can only endure the pain and continue to lift the lever. As the steel cone pierces the wound again, Bobby instantly experiences Nina's pain. He tries to persevere, but the bone-deep pain coupled with the device's weight means he ultimately cannot hold on. He can only watch helplessly as Susan is impaled by the steel pipe. At the same time, Gibson arrives at the Crossroads manufacturing plant. Back then, he was ordered to inspect this place. But he was attacked by a homeless man, and his gun was taken by the assailant. Fortunately, Hoffman arrives in time and shoots the man dead. He thus escapes danger, but due to his professional beliefs, he believes the homeless man did not deserve to die. So he reports Hoffman for improper conduct. His superiors not only give him no punishment, but instead promote him to detective. After that, Gibson is transferred to internal affairs. To investigate this matter, he also arrests 3 of Hoffman's confidants. As he speaks, Gibson suddenly remembers the homeless man killed by Hoffman, who is a patient who escaped from Clear Dawn Psychiatric Hospital. Combining this with the video content, he instantly guesses where Bobby and the others are being held. He then quickly tells Rogers to return to the police station to protect Jill. Meanwhile, he rushes towards Clear Dawn Psychiatric Hospital. At the same time, Bobby has already found the location of the 4th test. When he sees, "Ignore the gossip," written on the door, he walks directly into the room. The truth is just as he expects. This time, he is indeed facing Carl. Looking at the room with its floor removed, Bobby immediately plays the recording.
Hello, Bobby. Across from you is your closest friend. He knows all your sins, yet he acts as though he hears no evil. Today, what he hears will be the difference between life and death. Bobby, you must help Kale walk over the planks and get as close to you as possible. Find your own way across the beams to the key. You must get it to him over the last span between you. If the noose around Kale's neck is not removed within 60 seconds, a winch will be engaged and your secret will be left hanging. Does Kale live or die, Bobby? The choice is yours.
As the countdown begins, the chains immediately loosen. The tense Carl almost falls. Fortunately, the two are best friends. He quickly regains his composure. Then, under Bobby's command, he walks towards the center. But before he can celebrate, the 3rd plank suddenly breaks. Bobby quickly jumps to the beam to save him. Who would have thought that as soon as he stabilizes himself, Carl climbs up on his own. Bobby immediately goes to get the key. But after he takes it off, only 8 seconds are left. In a hurry, Bobby tells Carl to cup his hands in front of his chest. Then he throws the key over. But because his eyes are covered and he has been repeatedly startled, Carl's consciousness is already almost scattered. Just like that, The key falls downstairs under Bobby's desperate gaze. Immediately after, the iron chain around the man's neck suddenly tightens. Seeing that things have come to this point, Bobby can only suppress his grief and continue forward. He has barely walked far when he sees, "Cherish your loved one," written on the wall. But unlike the previous times, there is an extra combination lock on the door. Just as Bobby is puzzled, the television suddenly plays his wife's surveillance footage. When he discovers they can talk, Bobby quickly tries to calm his wife's emotions. He has barely spoken a few words when the screen switches again.
Hello, Bobby. Before you is the door that leads to your wife. However, you must first make a choice. As you may have guessed, your decision will be as difficult as pulling teeth. The lock before you requires a 4-digit combination to open. However, if it is access you seek, then a true sacrifice will have to be made. Watch and learn, Bobby. The necessary numbers have been etched onto 2 of your teeth. Look to the chart as a reference for which teeth to pull and in which order to enter the digits. Time is ticking down. You must make your decision quickly.
Bobby hears his wife's cries, turns his body, and shoves the pliers into his mouth. Meanwhile, Gibson and his team storm into the building. Seeing the steel plate on the ground and the images on the television, he immediately orders the tactical team to begin a search. Unexpectedly, just as they find Nina's body, Palmer calls. Upon learning of Hoffman's hiding place, Gibson immediately decides to split up. However, just as he leaves, Bobby's screams echo from deep within the building. The tactical team immediately follows the sound, but because the room's floor is completely removed, they can only choose to take a detour. However, they do not know that they are stepping, one by one, into the death trap Hoffman meticulously sets. As the iron door automatically closes and locks, the device by the wall activates. Dense poisonous gas instantly engulfs the entire room. The unprepared tactical team falls to the ground, losing all signs of life. At the same time, Bobby finally gets the password for the iron gate. After he opens it, he sees "Cherish every day" written prominently on the wall. He rushes into the room to save his wife. He never expects the barbed wire to be electrified. Before Bobby can recover, the familiar voice rings out again.
Hello, Bobby. You have almost completed your rebirth. However, your final task will be your most difficult. The woman before you symbolizes your success. She is your trophy, and she has seen the good in your message, despite its dishonest beginnings.
What's he talking about?
Today, we will see if you can truly earn her love. To prove your status as a survivor, you must overcome a game that should be all too familiar. You supposedly survived it once already, so it should be easy to survive once again. Pierce the hooks through your chest muscles, and the game will begin. In order to free yourself and your wife, you must hoist yourself with these chains and connect the extension cords above you before the clock expires. Both hands will be needed to complete this task, but that should be simple, for as you claim to understand, the pectoral muscles can easily support your weight. So I ask you, Bobby, when you embrace every day as if it is your last, will it be with your wife? Make your choice.
Seeing that time is running out, Bobby does not bother to explain. He immediately takes off his clothes and inserts the iron hook along the scar. Looking at the continuously gushing blood and Bobby's contorted face, the resentment in Joyce's eyes is instantly replaced by worry. Seeing that his wife forgives him, Bobby's fighting spirit instantly ignites to its peak. Then, encouraged by Joyce, he makes a concerted effort and gets the power cord. But just as he prepares to connect it, his overloaded pectoral muscles suddenly tear, and caught off guard, he falls heavily to the ground, completely losing the chance to save his wife. As the countdown ends, the device beneath Joyce roars to life. Bobby tries to tear through the barbed wire, but it is completely useless. With no other option, he can only watch as his wife is burned to a crisp. Meanwhile, Gibson finally rushes back to the junkyard, and the truth is just as he expects. A secret room is indeed hidden behind the mirror. To prevent Hoffman from escaping, he specifically calls 2 police officers to guard the scene. But just as he prepares to make the arrest, he is stunned by the scene before his eyes. He sees sitting on the chair is actually the corpse of Evan's friend. As Gibson feels puzzled, the statue on the table catches his attention.
I know that from somewhere.
Make your choice. Clock's ticking.
Bag the other bodies, get them back to the coroner's office right away.
What is this, sir? Hoffman tapped into the station's security system. He's been watching us the whole time.
Discovering that Hoffman has infiltrated the police station, Gibson quickly calls to inform Palmer. But before he can finish his sentence, a sound comes from behind him, followed by a heavy machine gun. He appears in front of them. Hearing the intense gunfire from the other side, Palma dares not hang up the phone. Therefore, she misses the last chance to stop Hoffman. The unsuspecting forensic doctor and his assistant, as well as their colleagues in the hallway, are all silenced. Even after Hoffman enters the office, Palma is still calling Gibson. Ultimately, she does not even have time to cry for help before her neck is snapped. When he discovers 2 more people in the interrogation room, Hoffman directly uses Palma's body to trick the door open. He eliminates the guard in the same manner. Jill hears the commotion and quickly warns them. However, as soon as Rogers turns around, he is shot in a vital spot and falls to the ground. Lifeless, facing the man who appears like a demon, Jill quickly hides the tools from the table behind her back. When Hoffman approaches, she fiercely stabs him, using the element of surprise in her attack. Jill breaks free and rushes towards the exit. To her despair, the main door is already locked by Hoffman. Having nowhere to go, she can only hide in the evidence room. However, she does not know that this is the very place Hoffman prepares for his revenge. Jill is knocked unconscious and tied to a chair. What is even more cruel is that the device Hoffman uses for revenge is the first-generation reverse bear trap. Personally crafted by Jigsaw, those unfamiliar with this can watch the explanation of the first movie, which also includes the detailed process of Lawrence undergoing his test until his escape. Next, the narrative returns to the plot. Jill is awakened by the sound of a lock. When she discovers the reverse bear trap on her head, she instantly understands her fate. And past image flash through her mind.
Game over.
After leaving the police station, Hoffman goes straight to his secret hideout to pack his belongings. To ensure everything is foolproof, he also uses gasoline to ignite the entire warehouse. However, he does not know that from the moment he forces the police, his fate is already sealed. When Lawrence's hand reaches for the mask, the 7-year setup of the Saw universe finally comes to fruition. Next, the audience gets to experience this textbook-level twist.
What the fuck? Hello, Dr. Gordon. You are perhaps my greatest asset.
Congratulations, Dr. Gordon. You survived.
Without you, my work over the last few years would not have been possible.
Jeff's wife, Dr. Lynn Denman. She'll be perfect.
That having been said, I have a request. Watch over Jill. And should anything happen to her, I want you to act immediately on my behalf in return for that. I will keep no more secrets from you. I have showed you a lot of places. But there is one that will be perhaps the most meaningful to you.
Finally, they briefly discuss why Lawrence only appears after Jill is killed. The answer actually lies in Jigsaw's philosophy. Viewers who have watched the previous parts should easily notice something. Jigsaw's games are never about interrupting the judgment prematurely. Instead, they make everyone pay for their choices. Jill, according to Jigsaw's last wish, uses the reverse bear trap on Hoffman, which is her choice. Now, Hoffman, in turn, seeks revenge on her. This is essentially the inevitable price for both of them participating in Jigsaw's plan. Lawrence acts as Jigsaw's most deeply hidden assistant. Or rather, his successor. What needs to be done is not saving Jill, but waiting until after the trial to eliminate those who deviate from the philosophy. This is both a defense of the philosophy and an echo of the first film's leg-sawing survivor's identity. Okay, that's the end of today's episode. See you in the next episodes.
Game over.